Wren who had overcome impossible odds, families who had found hope when everything seemed lost. The local library became Emma's research center. She spent days connecting the dots, understanding the complex network Thomas had created. He had worked with school principals, hospital administrators, and social workers to identify families most in need. One story particularly moved her. A young girl named Emily had been struggling with a rare medical condition. Thomas had not only paid for her treatment, but had also supported her family's living expenses. Emily was now a medical student, continuing the cycle of hope. The community center felt like a sacred space of discovery. Old photographs, letters, and documents surrounded Emma. Each piece told a story of quiet heroism, of a man who believed in the power of small, consistent acts of kindness. Dr. Walker explained how Thomas had created a sustainable support system. He didn't just give money, he created opportunities. He would help families with educational resources, medical support, and emotional guidance. His approach was holistic and deeply compassionate. Emma discovered Thomas had a network of trusted friends who helped him identify families in need. Local teachers, doctors, and community leaders would discreetly reach out when they knew of a family facing impossible challenges. The financial records were meticulously maintained. Thomas had saved money from every paycheck, creating a fund that would continue to support families even after his death. He had planned everything with extraordinary care and compassion. One letter particularly touched Emma's heart. It was from a mother whose son had received medical treatment through Thomas's support. "You gave us more than money," the letter read. "You gave us hope when we had nothing left." As evening approached, the community center filled with soft light. Emma realized Thomas had created more than just a support system. He had created a legacy of hope, a network of compassion that would continue long after he was gone. Dr. Walker handed her a final folder. Inside were plans for a foundation, carefully drafted in Thomas's handwriting. He had been planning a way to continue his work, even after his death. The folder was a roadmap for continued support and hope. He never wanted recognition, Dr. Walker said softly. For Thomas, kindness was its own reward. Emma understood now. Her husband had lived a life of extraordinary purpose, touching lives in ways she had never imagined. The truth was more beautiful than any story. Thomas had not just lived a life, he had created a continuous wave of hope, touching generations of families, changing lives one small act at a time. The end, the small village of Millbrook watched in quiet amazement as Emma transformed Thomas's dream into reality. She stood in the community center, surrounded by local leaders, doctors, and the families her husband had once supported, launching the Thomas Hartley Foundation. Her hands trembled slightly as she unfolded the documents. Years of Thomas's careful planning would now become a living, breathing support system for families facing medical and educational challenges. The foundation would continue his silent mission of hope. Dr. James Walker stood beside her, presenting the first set of scholarship and medical support grants. The room was filled with familiar faces, families Thomas had helped years ago, now successful and eager to give back. Michael Thompson, now an engineer, was the first to pledge additional support. Emma had sold some of their property and used Thomas's carefully saved funds to establish a robust support network. The foundation would provide medical treatments, educational resources, and long-term support for families in need. Each decision was made with the same careful consideration Thomas had shown. The local school where Thomas had taught became the foundation's first headquarters. Photographs of Thomas decorated the walls, a quiet reminder of the man who had changed so many lives. Students who had benefited from his kindness now volunteered to help others. Sarah Roberts, the single mother Thomas had once supported, became a key member of the foundation's advisory board. Her daughter, now a medical researcher, brought professional expertise to their mission. The cycle of hope continued, generation after generation. Local businesses began to support the foundation. The bakery where Emma had first read Thomas's journals offered free breakfast to foundation volunteers. The bookshop donated books for children's educational programs. The entire community rallied around Thomas's legacy. Emma discovered stories she had never known. A teacher shared how Thomas had helped her continue her education. A local doctor explained how he had supported medical research for rare childhood conditions. Each story revealed another layer of Thomas's extraordinary compassion. The Foundation's first major project was a medical support program for children with rare conditions. They established connections with hospitals, created scholarship funds, and developed a comprehensive support system that went beyond financial aid. Riverside Hospital became a key partner. Dr. Walker helped design programs that would identify and support families facing medical challenges. They created a network that could respond quickly to families in desperate need of help. Emma spent hours organizing Thomas's journals and documents. Each page was a testament to a life lived with extraordinary purpose. She began writing a book about his journey, hoping to inspire others to create their own networks of support. The local newspaper ran a feature about Thomas's legacy. Photographs of families he had helped filled the pages. Emma watched as their stories of transformation touched the entire community. Thomas's quiet heroism was finally being recognized. Young students began to learn about Thomas's approach to kindness. Local schools incorporated his story into community service programs. Children started small support projects, inspired by the idea that one person can make a significant difference. Emily, the young medical student Thomas had once supported, became a key spokesperson for the Foundation. Her story of transformation inspired others to believe in the power of unexpected kindness. She spoke at schools and community events, sharing her journey. As months passed, the Foundation grew. They expanded support to neighboring counties, creating a network of hope that extended far beyond Millbrook. Thomas's vision of consistent, compassionate support was becoming a reality. Emma found healing in continuing Thomas's work. What had started as a journey of grief had transformed into a powerful mission of hope. She understood now that love doesn't end with loss. It continues through action and purpose. The community center became a symbol of hope. Families would gather, share their stories, and support each other. The walls were filled with photographs of lives changed, of possibilities created, of hope restored. On the anniversary of Thomas's death, Emma stood in the community center. Surrounded by the families he had helped, she realized that his legacy was more than a foundation. It was a living, breathing network of compassion that would continue for generations. Thomas had shown that one person's kindness could create endless waves of hope. His story was not about an end, but about a continuous journey of love and support. The end. Riverside Hospital stood as a massive red brick building, its windows reflecting the morning light. Emma walked through the entrance, her nursing background giving her confidence. The receptionist, a kind-faced woman named Margaret, looked up with curiosity. "I'm looking for information about some donations," Emma explained, her voice slightly trembling. She shared the details from Thomas's journals, anonymous contributions that had helped children with medical challenges. Margaret's eyes softened with recognition. Dr. James Walker, a senior physician with kind eyes and salt and pepper hair, invited Emma to his office. Photographs of children lined his walls, some smiling, some in hospital beds, all seeming to hold a secret story of hope. "Your husband," Dr. Walker began, "was more than just a donor. He was a guardian angel for many families." He pulled out a thick folder, filled with carefully preserved documents. Each page told a story of medical support, of lives changed by Thomas's quiet generosity. Emma learned about Michael Thompson, a young boy with a rare heart condition. Thomas had not only paid for his medical treatment, but had also supported his family during the difficult times. The boy was now a successful engineer, something that would never have been possible without Thomas's help. Another story touched Emma deeply. Sarah Roberts, a single mother with a child needing expensive medication, had been saved by Thomas's anonymous donations. The journals revealed how he had tracked her progress, sending encouraging letters without revealing his identity. The teatro hospital's walls seemed to whisper stories of hope. Emma walked through the corridors, seeing Thomas's impact in every corner. Nurses and doctors shared snippets of memories, a mysterious donor who appeared when families needed help the most. Dr. Walker showed her a special memorial wall. Several photographs were displayed, each representing a child whose life had been changed by unexpected kindness. Emma recognized some names from Thomas's journals, her heart swelling with pride and love. He never wanted recognition, Dr. Walker explained. Thomas believed that true kindness doesn't need an audience. Each story was a testament to a man who understood that love is an action, not just a feeling. Emma discovered Thomas had created a complex network of support. He worked with social workers, hospital administrators, and local community leaders to identify families in desperate need. His approach was systematic, yet deeply compassionate. The hospital cafeteria became a place of revelation. Over cups of strong tea, Dr. Walker shared more stories. Thomas had a unique way of helping, not just financially, but by providing emotional support. He would send books, write letters of encouragement, create small connections of hope. As afternoon turned to evening, Emma realized her husband had lived a double life. To her, he was a loving partner. To these families, he was a silent guardian, a beacon of hope in their darkest moments. The disconnect was both shocking and beautiful. She found letters from families whose lives Thomas had touched. Some had become successful professionals, others had overcome impossible medical challenges. Each letter spoke of a mysterious donor who appeared when hope seemed lost. The hospital archives revealed a complex system of anonymous support. Thomas had created a network that extended beyond medical help, supporting education, mental health, and family stability. His approach was holistic, understanding that healing goes beyond medical treatment. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the hospital windows, Emma understood something profound. Thomas had not just lived a life, he had created a legacy of compassion. His small acts of kindness had created ripples of hope that extended far beyond their small village. Margaret from the reception approached her with tears in her eyes. "Your husband," she said, "was the kind of person who made the world better, one small act at a time." Emma realized that love is not about grand gestures, but consistent, quiet support. The journey was more than a discovery. It was a transformation. Emma was no longer just a grieving wife, but a keeper of an extraordinary legacy of love and hope. The old community center in Riverside buzzed with quiet energy. Emma sat surrounded by files, photographs, and years of Thomas's carefully documented kindness. Dr. James Walker helped her organize the mountain of information, each document telling a story of hope. "Your husband was extraordinary," Dr. Walker said, spreading out a map marked with locations of families Thomas had helped. Pins showed a network extending across northern England, each representing a life touched by his generosity. Emma discovered the deeper truth behind Thomas's mission. As a young teacher, he had experienced poverty firsthand. Growing up in a small farming family, he understood the struggle of children who couldn't afford basic educational resources. This experience had shaped his entire life's purpose. One photograph caught her attention, a young Thomas standing in a worn school uniform looking determined. His parents had worked multiple jobs to support his education, and he had never forgotten that sacrifice. Each family he helped was a tribute to his own parents' struggle. The stories began to connect like a complex puzzle. Michael Thompson, the boy with the heart condition, was now a successful engineer. Sarah Roberts' daughter had become a medical researcher. Thomas had not just provided financial support, he had planted seeds of possibility. Dr. Walker shared a remarkable detail. Thomas had a unique method of helping. He didn't just give money. He provided mentorship, sent books, wrote encouraging letters, and created support networks for struggling families. His approach was about empowerment, not just financial aid. Emma found a hidden compartment in Thomas's journal. Inside were carefully preserved letters from families he had helped. Each one told a story of transformation. Child, In the quiet village of Millbrook, nestled among rolling green hills, Emma Hartley lived alone in a small cottage with white-painted walls and a garden filled with wildflowers. The morning sunlight filtered through lace curtains, casting soft shadows across her kitchen table. She was a nurse at the local hospital, known for her gentle hands and kind heart. 2 years had passed since Thomas's unexpected death. The memory still felt raw, like a wound that never quite healed. Every morning Emma would make 2 cups of tea, one for herself and an invisible one for Thomas, a habit she couldn't break. The silence of her home spoke volumes about the love she had lost. On this particular Wednesday morning, a crisp envelope arrived with an official-looking seal. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she opened it. The lawyer's letterhead caught her eye. Williams & Partners, a firm that had managed Thomas's affairs. She had thought everything was settled, all paperwork completed long ago. The letter was brief, but intriguing. It spoke of a sealed envelope that Thomas had left behind, to be opened exactly 2 years after his passing. A specific instruction, carefully planned, that made Emma's heart race with curiosity. The lawyer requested her presence. At his office in the nearby town of Riverside, Emma remembered Thomas as a man of secrets. Not the kind that hurt, but the kind that surprised. He had always been thoughtful, always planning, always thinking ahead. Their life together had been simple but beautiful. He worked as a local school teacher, she as a nurse. They never had children, but they had each other, and that had been enough. As she read the letter again, memories flooded her mind. Thomas's last days in the hospital, his gentle smile, the way he held her hand, even when he was weak. He had always told her that life was about moments, not years. "Promise me you'll live," he had whispered in his final days. The cottage suddenly felt different. The familiar rooms now seemed to hold a mystery, whispering secrets from the past. Emma walked to the small drawer where she kept Thomas's photograph, him standing by their garden, wearing his favorite blue sweater, his kind eyes looking directly at the camera. She called the lawyer's office and made an appointment for the following day. The anticipation was both exciting and terrifying. What could Thomas have possibly left behind? What secret could he have kept from her all these years? That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, her mind racing with possibilities. Thomas had always been full of surprises. Once he had planned an entire weekend trip without her knowing, surprising her with tickets to a small coastal town she had always wanted to visit. The village of Millbrook slept peacefully outside. Moonlight bathed the landscape in a soft silver glow. Cats wandered the quiet streets and an occasional owl hooted in the distance. But inside Emma's cottage, a storm of emotions and questions brewed. She thought about their life together. They weren't rich, but they were happy. Thomas had a way of finding joy in the simplest things. A perfectly brewed cup of tea, a beautiful sunset, the sound of rain on their roof. He collected old books, loved gardening, and was passionate about teaching. As dawn approached, Emma made her decision. She would go to the lawyer's office and uncover whatever mystery Thomas had left behind. Something told her this was more than just a legal document or a final wish. The letter lay on her kitchen table, catching the first rays of morning sunlight. It seemed to pulse with a mysterious energy, holding a promise of something unexpected, something that would change everything. Emma Hartley, a woman who had learned to live with loss, was about to discover that some stories never truly end. Some love stories continue, even after death, in ways we can never predict. The envelope waited, patient and silent, holding its secret close, a testament to a love that refused to be confined by the boundaries of time and mortality. The end. The lawyer's office was an old brick building on Riverside's Main Street, nestled between a bakery and a small bookshop. Emma arrived precisely at 10, her hands clutching a worn leather handbag. Mr. Richard Peterson, a gray-haired man in his 60s, greeted her with a sympathetic smile. "Mrs. Hartley," he began, "Thomas left something quite unusual." He handed her an old wooden box, its surface carved with intricate patterns that looked like they had been made years ago. The box seemed to carry its own history, weathered but carefully preserved. Inside, Emma discovered a collection of journals. Not just one, but several, bound in leather with dates carefully inscribed on their spines. The earliest dated back to 15 years ago, long before they had even met. Her curiosity burned like a quiet flame. The first journal revealed Thomas's early life, his struggles as a young teacher, his dreams, his challenges. Emma discovered he had come from a small farming family in northern England, the first to go to university. His parents had sacrificed everything to support his education. As she read, a remarkable story unfolded. Thomas had not just been a simple school teacher. He had been secretly helping struggling students, paying for their books, supporting families who couldn't afford school supplies. Each entry spoke of quiet acts of kindness, never seeking recognition. One particular entry caught her attention. Thomas had written about a young student named Michael, whose family was facing severe financial difficulties. Instead of letting the boy drop out of school, Thomas had secretly worked extra jobs to support Michael's education. The journals were more than just memories. They were a testament to a life lived with extraordinary compassion. Emma realized she had married a man who was far more complex than she had ever understood. Each page revealed another layer of Thomas's character. She learned about his secret savings, small amounts carefully tucked away from each paycheck, not for themselves, but for others. He had a network of support that extended far beyond their small village, touching lives in ways Emma had never imagined. The local bakery where Emma stopped for coffee became her reading spot. Between sips of warm tea, she devoured the journals, discovering a side of Thomas she had never known. The other customers noticed her emotional journey, watching her sometimes laugh, sometimes cry while reading. What struck Emma most was Thomas's philosophy. "Life is not about how much you have," one entry read, "but how much you can give." These words seemed to echo through the pages, revealing a profound understanding of human connection. She discovered letters tucked between journal pages, thank you notes from students Thomas had helped, photographs of families he had supported, small tokens of gratitude collected over decades. Each item told a story of quiet heroism. The wooden box itself seemed to hold memories. Its corners were worn, its surface marked with love and time. Emma ran her fingers over the carvings, wondering about their origin, about the hands that had first created this beautiful container. As evening approached, Emma realized the journals were more than just a personal history. They were a roadmap of compassion, a guide to living a life of meaning. Thomas had created a legacy that went far beyond their personal relationship. Her perception of their life together began to shift. What she had thought was a simple existence was actually a carefully crafted journey of supporting others. Thomas had been building something important, something that would continue long after he was gone. The village seemed different now. Every street, every building held potential stories of Thomas's kindness. Emma looked at familiar places with new eyes, understanding that true impact is often silent and unrecognized. Mr. Peterson had been right. This was no ordinary inheritance. These journals were a mission, a call to continue something beautiful. Emma felt Thomas's presence stronger now than ever before, not as a loss but as an inspiration. As night fell, she carefully packed the journals, holding them close. Something had awakened inside her, a sense of purpose, a connection to a love that transcended mere personal relationship. Thomas had left her more than memories. He had left her a purpose. The end. The train to northern England cut through misty landscapes, carrying Emma towards a journey of discovery. She clutched Thomas's journals, her heart beating with anticipation. The countryside rolled by, green fields, old stone walls, and distant farmhouses blending into a watercolor of memories.